Part 2. Oh, what the hell? Let's live dangerously, said Tanda. That's the gorge where all the bandits hang out, right? That you can't cross without being attacked along the way? I've always wanted to see that gorge. Let's go for it. You wouldn't rather brave alpine storms and rabid mountain goats, said Balsa. You know, those goats can be very aggressive. When I was a girl, I remember one attacked Jigoro and he had to wrestle it into submission. Perhaps you'd like a chance to do the same? Tanda shrugged. Nah, bandits are more my jam. Besides, I bet we might bump into mountain goats up there, too. I hope so, said Balsa. I'd love to see you wrestle a goat. Before long, Balsa and Tanda were trekking their way towards the Usal Gorge. At least for today, the weather was beautiful out. Balsa smiled at Tanda, feeling extremely content. He smiled back. I'm really glad I finally married him, she thought happily. It was just really nice, just being with him. She reached out and took his hand. He squeezed it in reply. As they crossed the bridge over the gorge, sure enough, they were halfway across when a group of bandits appeared on the far side of the bridge. When Balsa and Tanda looked back, they saw that there were bandits behind them too, blocking the way back. Why did we want to go through the gorge again? Tanda muttered. I'll handle this, Balsa said. First, she vaulted over the bandits in front of them, using her spear to push off for added height. She kicked 2 bandits in the head as she passed over. When she landed, she spun, bringing her leg up to kick another in the jaw. Tanda was left in a lurch behind her. He sidestepped the clumsy first strike of one of the bandits, then tripped another. These guys don't really seem like much of a threat, he muttered. But then 2 other bandits started cutting the lines that attached the bridge to the other side of the gorge. If Tanda and Balsa didn't reach the other side in time, they would fall into the ravine far below. They raced for the Kanbal side of the bridge, feeling the planks jog back and forth wildly under their feet. But then, suddenly, a hawk swept past them only a few feet away. A very familiar hawk. It was Tanda's friend Sufar's hawk, Shao. A second later, there was a shriek from the bandits behind them. Tanda and Balsa both stopped running and turned to watch. No one was trying to cut the bridge supports. In fact, the bandits were on the run. Someone had come to rescue them. It's the Kashal, said Balsa. Who could have guessed it? They walked back across the bridge. All of the bandits had been tied up, knocked out, killed, or had fled. Sufar wasn't here, only Shao. But his daughter was. Ugh, said Shihana, her lip curling. Balsa, what are you doing here? I'm on vacation, said Balsa. What are you doing here? Hello, national security? It's literally my job to take out bandits and prevent crime in my country. I thought it was your job to make sure the tall didn't step out of line, said Balsa, unsmiling. And spying and stuff, said Tanda. Shihana had kidnapped him once upon a time, and he was less than enthusiastic about seeing her again. Shihana made a face. Somehow, with her eye patch, she looked even bitchier than before. You could thank me for, saving your lives? Balsa just rolled her eyes. Whatever, said Shihana, her lip curling. Ingrates. Being rescued by Shihana, of all people, was something of a surprise. Balsa would eternally insist that it wasn't a rescue, but a damn nuisance. The Kashal escorted Balsa and Tanda to Kanbal's border beyond the first checkpoint, making their journey that much safer. Tanda was relieved. But traveling with Balsa and Shihana together wasn't exactly easy. Balsa second-guessed every decision Shihana made about tracking game, setting up camp, and selecting routes. Shihana tended to get selective hearing when Balsa made a suggestion about anything. I'm Kanbalese. I know the way to Kanbal, Balsa grumbled. I've traveled this route more times than I can count, Shihana shot back, her single eye glittering in the half-darkness. If you doubt my navigation skills, well, I could lure you into a ditch and just leave you there, Shihana said, curling her lip. Just try it, Balsa shot back. I'm amazed you don't fall into a ditch yourself with your amazing depth perception, Cyclops. Shihana's face purpled. Maybe I should return the favor. Maybe, Tanda suggested, you should stop fighting so that we can get to Kanbal like we planned. Balsa and Shihana glared at each other a moment longer, then both nodded at the same moment, and the journey resumed. It took almost no time to make it to Kanbal City, the capital of Kanbal. Much like Rota City was the capital of Rota, Orm City was the capital of Orm, and Horam Federal District was the capital of Horam. This seemed as good a place as any to stop for the night. Hey, said Balsa. I bet we could get them to let us stay at the palace instead of at some smelly 2-bit inn. I totally saved King Radal's life, you know. not to mention, like, literally the entire nation of Kanbal. Blah, 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 muttered Shihana. Balsa's so special. Balsa saved the world. Whoop-de-doo. How far are we from Kanbal City again? Tanda asked. Too far, Balsa said. Much, much too far. I think there's an inn nearby along the road. It was here last time I passed through. There was, indeed, an inn along the road, though it wasn't much more than 4 stone walls with an extra room inside. Still, the mother and daughter who ran the place seemed friendly. The daughter, Maya, brought them all fried loso and suchal stew, along with a brewed beer that only Balsa was able to choke down. It's an acquired taste, Balsa said sagely. Acquired by savages, Shihana said. Why are you still here? I was ordered to escort you to your destination, and I don't disobey Prince Ihon's orders, Shihana said. Why does he care? Because I saved the world? Balsa asked. You did not? And he cares because he's decent and values his alliance with Chagam. If anything happened to you, Mikado Chagam would be very upset. I'm here to prevent a geopolitical incident. That sounds important, Tanda said. Not really, Balsa shrugged. It's not like we can't defend ourselves. I felt safer before you were here, Shihana. Why? Balsa looked behind her. Shihana turned, frowning to see what Balsa was looking at. Fancy seeing you here, Hugo Arayutan said in faultless Conbalese. You followed Shihana, didn't you? Balsa asked dully. A spy is a spy, Hugo said with a shrug. Some spy you are, Shihana muttered. Says the spy who left a trail so clear through mud that even a child could track it. Balsa gave Hugo a smile that almost looked genuine. Shihana scowled at them both and choked on beer. Why are you here? Balsa asked Hugo. Certainly not to make friends. I have friends everywhere. He winked at Balsa. Tanda looked slightly uncomfortable. Truth is, I have unfinished business in Kanbal. King Radal made a deal with the Talsh, remember? I do, Balsa said, but that doesn't explain why you're here, Hugo. Hugo snorted and rolled his eyes as sassily and dramatically as possible. Like I need to explain myself. Maybe it's top secret. Maybe I don't care. Maybe I don't care, Hugo mimicked, making a face. Shihana laughed. Also, let's just go, said Tanda. He hadn't met Hugo, but he knew about him, and he'd heard rumors that Balsa and Hugo had had a small fling before the Talsh invasion, which made him automatically dislike the snarky spy. He had, come to think of it, heard similar things about Shihana. And come to think of it, Hugo had the same condescending, irreverent, rude way of speaking that Shihana had, albeit with a measure of charm thrown in, a quality Shihana lacked. Tanda tugged on Balsa's arm. Seriously, let's go. We're wasting daylight. Balsa gave a clipped nod, turned heel, and headed towards Kanbal City. Pretty soon, however, it became clear that Hugo and Shihana were following them. They're not staying at my Aunt Yuka's house, Balsa said, voice adamant. Of course not, Tanda said. They're spies. They probably have safe houses or something. You know about spies? I read Jiguro's books. It was a brilliantly clear day, perfect for travel. Tanda and Balsa rented horses at a village in Yonsa territory and rode the rest of the way. As they entered the valley where Balsa's Aunt Yuka lived, mountains were bathed in a red-purple glow. Alam Lila, Tanda said, smiling. Balsa smiled back. Aunt Yuka's house was just ahead, but Balsa suspected that Hugo and Shihana had probably followed them on horseback, too. Putting any thoughts of their two ne'er-do-well stalkers out of her head, Balsa pointed to the House of Healing. That's Aunt Yuka's place. You'll like it. You and her can talk medicine and stuff. Tanda smiled. And what about you? I'll smile and nod like I know what you're talking about, she laughed. They pushed open the gate and dismounted in the courtyard. No sooner had they handed off their horses to a servant than Yuka came running out of the house with open arms. Balsa, she cried, I thought you'd never get here. And this must be your husband, Tanda. She hugged them both, effusive. It had been years since Balsa had last seen her, but Yuka appeared ageless. And had apparently also forgotten that she had met Tanda at Balsa's wedding. Because I forgot that she had met Tanda at Balsa's wedding. That evening, after a fine supper of lasso, larue, laco luca, and other Convolese delicacies, the three sat by the hearth trading stories. Balsa and Yuka had written to each other, but mail between countries was slow and unreliable, so there was lots of catching up to do. Meanwhile, outside the walls of the House of Healing, Hugo and Shihana were plotting how best to get inside. They were plotting recklessly. It didn't know the herders and the people beyond the surface had already sensed them as intruders. Toto received the message by a young panicked herder. He asked some of his friends to watch them in their every move and every breath. In the meanwhile, Yuka was already filling some plates of baked sweets and lakal. So, like that, my niece is now married. When are the children coming? Tanda and Balsa spat out their water. Balsa was about to say. Not yet, but maybe one day, Tanda smiled. Yuka smiled and said she was teasing her beloved niece as she was used to when Balsa was young. Did your travel go well? Yuka asked them. Yeah, except for our stalkers, said Balsa nonchalantly. Yuka's eyebrows went up. Stalkers? This isn't like before, is it? She meant the time Balsa had been forcibly removed from the House of Healing by Yugoro Musa's men after he falsely accused her of a crime. Because I really don't want armed thugs bursting onto my property demanding your arrest. Nothing like that, Balsa laughed. Just a couple of annoying mosquitoes. A couple of old acquaintances we'd really rather do without, added Tanda. Like? Like the bitchiest woman in Rota? Said Balsa. And a pathological liar from Talsh, supplied Tanda. Hey, I'm from Yogo, came an angry, muffled voice from outside the door. Balsa rolled her eyes. I knew they were listening in. That's the problem with rats. You just can't ever get rid of them. Yuka's brow knitted. Well, let's meet these stalkers of yours, Balsa dear. Open the door and let them in. Balsa made a face, but did as her aunt commanded. Hugo and Shihana both tumbled clumsily into the room. Well, what do you have to say for yourselves? Yuka asked sternly, standing over the two eavesdroppers with her hands on her hips.